Everyone, welcome. Glad to have you all here. Hopefully, my mic is all right. Feel free to check out the AMA questions channel and the AMA details to find out information on the project. Today, I have Ted C here with me for the presentation on Daylight. This is a project that I've been aware of for some time here in Alpha Ventures, and I believe I actually made a write up a while ago. So I'm actually really excited for this one. Make sure to include your questions. I will kind of, just go through a brief overview of the project with him, and then we'll go ahead and ask community questions. Again, Ted, thank you for stopping by. Hope you're having a good day. How are you doing today?
Hi, Zach. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Day's going great so far. How are you doing?
I'm doing really great. I'm Eastern Time US, so I woke up a little bit earlier than I'm used to. Um, but I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk about Daylight. I just really want to kind of know about everything that's been going on. I feel like it's been a while since I've been excited about like a new DeFi project, so definitely cool to have you here. Having my morning coffee here, ready to get started.
Awesome. I'm just having my late night energy drink as well. It's 8 p.m. on the dot for me, so it's been quite a long day, but I'm very happy to be here with you guys. Yeah, it's been a considerable amount of time. I think the last time we spoke was right about when the project was still in its inception stage, and we weren't ready to actually bring it to the table at that time. But at this point, we've done the seed round. We're ramping up marketing, and we're going for the public raise that will contribute towards the protocol's liquidity, etc., as well as further development. So it's a really good spot that I believe you've caught us on, and I think it's getting into this project at the very early stages is going to be monumental in terms of opportunity provision for not only you guys but then everyone who has eyes on this project, especially before launch date.
Yeah, awesome. Just for a little bit of context for everyone here, as Ted and I had mentioned, we'd kind of been aware of each other for quite some time, but he actually offered us access to the seed stage a while ago. A few of us got whitelist, so I think a few people mentioned that they were taking advantage of that. So I'm really bullish on the project for them, and it just sounds great. Um, yeah, I'm glad that we're finally here approaching the public sale. I think we have some people in here already. Just to let you guys all know, this will be recorded, and I will be sharing it later with everyone. So if there are some details, that maybe you might have missed, make sure to listen to the recording. And then again, just lastly, make sure to get those questions in the AMA questions channel. And then yeah, perhaps we can get started. Ted, I know time is important to you, so how about you let me know a little bit about the project just in general?
Absolutely. So Project Daylight was brought into inception about 3.5 months ago, where we as a team were collectively mm, analyzing how protocols in DeFi, especially in this market, were operating, and how we could better build sustainable protocols, or those that actually have you know a longer typical lifespan than other projects, as well as something that can be everlasting as well. Now, initially, we came up with certain spin-offs of multiple rebase projects, but we decided that is not the sustainable way to go. So Project Daylight itself is the first of its kind, and one of the newest innovations in DeFi. If I'd say we're the first true wealth generation protocol with our very own token. So our token is a deflationary rewarding token that has an ever appreciating floor price that is completely collateralized. So we do this by utilizing fractional liquidity pools as well as collateralization, so underlying assets that are fed into the token contract. And we're the first project in DeFi to ever do a mix of both. There are certain other projects that do collateralization and have an incremental increase in value because of their taxation mechanisms, such as MDB plus, such as XUSD, PUSD from Protocol X, and so on, right? But we're creating a token that can possibly swing up and down, but at the same time have an ever appreciating floor price that is 100% guaranteed. So it's 100% backed by PUSD, possibly by other tokens that are stable in the future, and this could this could include other stable appreciating tokens like MDP Plus or XUSD. So apart from that, Daylight is a complete ecosystem that is built to support the token utility itself. It's built to support a lot of the underlying mechanisms and feed revenue back into the floor price appreciation, feed into longevity of the project itself. So we've got a DEX on launch, we've got staking, we've got farming, and we're starting out in a very innovative way. So it's a very different approach. We're starting out at max supply, so there is zero inflation and zero risk of a bank run, because in the end the project is collateralized, which 100% makes it bank run resistant. It makes it put in a very good position. Even if there was no liquidity, you'd be actually able to redeem for the floor price at the very end. So it's a very innovative protocol that I think deserves an introduction to everybody in the space, deserves an introduction to new approaches in DeFi, and we've also got some other initiatives that aim to absorb projects, incubate projects, make the space safer, more friendly towards investors, mitigate any rug pulls, mitigate any exploits or any recurring problems that have been constantly brought up in the space, especially during these certain market conditions where sustainability just goes down for projects that are doing well in the bull run. And that's purely because supply starts to exceed demand in such market conditions. So another thing that we got going for us is we'll be having a launch pad that enables us to vet projects, incubate them, expand them into our ecosystem. Our DEX actually has some custom contracts where you're able to customize your own tax parameters. Usually the swap fees would drive our flow price up, but there are also other burn mechanics on the side that are contributed to by the DEX fees itself. But any token that's listing on our DEX will actually be able to customize these parameters. So that's something really incredible that they're not able to naturally do on other DEXs, or not a lot of them at least. We'll also have a play-to-earn ecosystem that consists of a decentralized betFi protocol, decentralized burn lottery, roulette, and many other chance-based or gambling-based protocols that will help contribute, again, its revenue towards the floor price, as well as profitability for the protocol to keep development and operations running.
Wow, yeah, it sounds like you definitely have a lot going on there. It sounds, really good for the main token, which I believe is DayL, the one that you had a seed stage, and I believe a public pre-sale is coming up. I'm also hearing a lot about, it's just something that I think has been very common for newer projects, especially in the market. I see that we're getting a lot of partnerships, and projects are more about the ecosystem now rather than just the one DeFi protocol, whether it's like auto rebaser or like a liquidity miner. So can you tell me a little bit about any partnerships, or I guess like the team, or just something about like what got you here and just how the community is like important to your project?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go over partnerships first. Partnerships that we do have right now are Pink Sale, which was our initial launchpad for the seed round. We wanted to actually host it on our website. We were going to at first, but development got in the way. Then we had a lot of hurdles, so we decided to go with a trustless launchpad. But we did all the steps necessary in order to ensure trust. We did a KYC, we did a docs, we did an audit, even for just the pre-sale contract itself. So that's something we put forward in order to gain confidence. We've got the other partners. We've got MDB as another partner, since we'll be using MDB Plus in some of our liquidity pools to ensure ever appreciating LP value itself. Then on top of that, we're going to be using. Um, we're part of the On-Chain Alliance. The On-Chain Alliance is basically a collection of projects that come together for B2B services, for provision of incubation, provision of help to different projects in order to, push them basically to the next level. And we've got that going for us. So what Daylight will actually be providing to this alliance is incubation of projects, listing on DEX, Launchpad launches, and other initiatives such as KYC or audits that are fundamental to project security. And the other project that we've partnered up with is Rebellion Project. The Rebellion Project has their own LMS system as well as KYC and audits, and these are some of the services that we'll be providing to tokens that decide to list on our DEX or Launchpad. Now, the team itself, I believe you've actually met some of us, but I'll go over a brief of who we are. So, Team Daylight consists of we consist of eight core team members. So we've got Roshan, Nadia, and myself, who are three people that are the co-founders. Roshan's basically an auditor at Deloitte. He also leads the Metaverse NFT integration models and research division at Deloitte as well. So kind of tapped into traditional and decentralized finance at the same time. Nadia is basically our engineering leader, leading the dev team, DevOps. And I myself have been massively in DeFi for quite a while now. Starting off with private equity, starting off with management consulting. I've worked with some of the biggest projects in the space, such as the Sandbox, Yield App, XYO, Rev Racing. Also built multiple projects, worked on multiple projects, advisory. I see you've got like a few of the projects, in your sponsor that I do recognize. Vinter DeFi, I'm the CPO. Sacred Tales, I'm the strategic advisor, or I was until recently. Time's been very constrained for me, to be honest. Then the rest of the team consists of Anthony, who's our chief strategy officer. He's been basically in DeFi for a very, very long time, has raised tons of capital, done a lot of fork projects, a lot of experimental projects, and really, really deep dived into DeFi. Our CMO is Ano, and I think some of you might know Ano. Ano is probably one of the best marketers ever in the space itself. Very well known for doing massive raises, for contributing towards Sphere Finance and other big protocols in the space, getting very, very high return on investment value from small marketing budgets, leveraging agile teams in order to make marketing efforts happen. Then we've got Mark, who is the CEO of DAP, the company that's basically working with us for our Web3 development. Mark is basically our strategic advisor, technical advisor, and he's also the founder of Xsurge ecosystem. He built MDB, he built Grape Finance, he built Alto, so there's a lot of different protocols that he's worked on. I can't name drop every one of them because he's worked on about 120 different DeFi protocols alone. Then we've got Kevin, who's our UI UX lead, and then we've got Rico, who's our community manager.
Wow, that just sounds like an amazing. I already knew this already. I've been in contact with some of you guys for a while, and I know, when we had the AMA earlier for Vinter DeFi, I just knew that, I just entered like a different realm of people who have just been involved in, pretty much every chain with such huge projects. I'd like maybe to kind of elaborate on that, but first I would like to ask, all this information on the founders, this can be found in the docs and the website, I believe. If that's correct.
So it can be found in the docs, as well as, we've got a section in our Discord talking about the team and exactly who we are, some of the name dropping, some of the stuff we've done in the past or currently working on as well. So everything's really transparent to the community. And in fact, yesterday I just uploaded a video on YouTube with my face, just talking, giving out a message to the beautiful community. And really, it's something that I feel a lot of project owners lack to do in DeFi, right? There's no efforts created towards some people come out and say they're docs, they'll put a picture, they'll put a LinkedIn, whatever it is, but you're not really able to gauge their emotions or how they actually feel and act towards the community. And I feel like this is something that definitely needs to be done. It's imperative that we come out to the forefront and we actually talk to our people as we're all human beings, and we're all striving for a better, more objective or higher goal in the space, which is to make DeFi better, make DeFi safer, bring it back to what it once was in the Uniswap and Aave days. And seriously, just think about capitalizing on sustainability and true wealth generation rather than what's happening or the shitstorm that DeFi has actually become, especially in the bear market, where people are looking to make a quick buck. People are trying to, fork different rebase protocols. Just it's unsustainable, and that's something we're aiming to change in the very, very long term.
Yeah, I think there were a few gems in what you said. At the end of the day, we have to realize that everything, every investor that's serious about DeFi, they have to remember that everything here is pretty much experimental. A lot of people here are doing something that has not been done before. But going the extra mile and getting trust in their community, doing things like doxing, KYCing, it really shows that they have legitimate interest in doing that thing. So I do appreciate that you did that. And all that is verifiable. Again, as we mentioned, all that is in their Discord. You'll find that in the AMA details channel. They also have their channel at the bottom of our server in the sponsored section. But kind of going back, thank you for answering that. I wanted to talk about, okay, so we've been in all these projects. I know you particularly have been in a lot of different chains, so you can provide a lot of insight into this, hopefully. But given the current state of the market, I would like to kind of pick your brain a little bit about what you think the current problems with most projects that are launching right now, like how much thought has gone into the whole public sale, pre-sale, like how methodical have you guys been, and how will you achieve success coming up? What does success look to you right now, specifically as a project and also for investors?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel the problem in, decentralized finance is sustainability. Sustainability here is the key problem when it comes to project longevity and especially creating something that's, persistent in the very long term. I'm obviously not going to name drop or point fingers at different projects, but there are a few protocols, and especially in the last few days, for those who are tapped into the news, that are deemed defunct, that are deemed rug pulled or even partially drained of liquidity, where project owners or project teams have been siphoning money out of the treasury in order to basically feed their own needs rather than look after the investors or take care of them. Now, such problems are very, very persistent in DeFi, and there's nothing that we can do to control these problems because you have to understand that a lot of these are private organizations or private businesses. They tend to make private decisions and are not basically run as a DAO. Now, what Daylight has is Daylight has an internal DAO called the Entity Circle, or the Daylight DAO, which consists of our top pledgers, consists of people that own a particular number of tokens and are truly committed to the protocol, committed to our vision as well, and they will also be assisting on various connections in the space as well as pointing us in the right direction when it comes to private decisions. On top of that, we've created a protocol that at least utilizes collateralization to a certain degree, ensuring that sustainability is existent and ever appreciating, creating a protocol that will easily run in eternity because it is collateralized. And there's no way that this is not possible because it's actually backed by real underlying assets and is not dependent on a singular liquidity pool that could possibly run out anytime in the future were supply to exceed demand, which is called inflation, which is happening to rebase protocols, which is happening to a lot of protocols that are giving really, really high returns, but have nothing to offset that in terms of sustainability and longevity. Now, when it comes to success, I think seeing investors happy, seeing the protocol really raise itself and its total value locked is a very specific measure and a realistic metric that we can use to ascertain that we've reached a certain point where we're particularly successful. For one, the protocol does not make any money from any transaction finality, so none of the taxations are actually going back to the protocol itself, but rather to the floor price, to the token holders, to rewards itself. Now, how we make our money is by having a listing fee as well as a launchpad fee where we incubate projects. And the majority of that revenue, if I'm being honest, actually goes towards raising the floor price.
Okay, cool. How about we move on towards kind of, I guess, the biggest part of what's happening with Daylight right now. I see your public sale is coming up. And like, could you kind of elaborate a little bit on, what exactly is going on, what your goals are, and then just like what people can expect? And maybe we could talk about the actual token itself as well.
Of course. So the public sale is going to take place on 1st November to 7th November, with the penultimate hard cap being 1.8 million. So that's the amount of money that we're trying to raise in order to justify the price that we'll be launching at, which is $1. So the pre-sale will be at $0.8, which is an incremental value increase of 22%. Actually, only 2% increase once you account for the taxes. So it's a very, very fair pre-sale and a very, very fair launch price, in my opinion, and lucrative offering, in fact, for a lot of people that is, that are going to be with us in the very long term, considering we have a permanent floor price. Launch will take place ideally 24 to 48 hours maximum after the pre-sale is done. So at the moment, the current projected launch date is 8th November.
And we're expecting to definitely meet that cap because I know that you met the seed stage fairly quickly as well.
Oof. The seed stage sold $100,000 in just 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So that was powerful, man, and that was whitelist only, right? No other protocol I've seen has done this amount, especially in this market.
Yeah, especially because this was during the bear market when it was like really bad. And I believe seed sale was around that time. It was 0.6, I believe, something like that.
Seed sale was 0.25, but the pool was very, very small, and it's easily, it's easily offset by our public pool. So the max supply will easily offset the pre-sale pool, which is why we allowed such an increase in value, because the limitations on the buy-in were also very, very low.
Yeah. So there's definitely been a lot of thought into this, right? You don't want to have a huge seed stage because it can limit growth later on, which is definitely awesome.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And one thing innovative that we did with the seed stage is I can tell you about 80% of the seed investors are people that own these massive call lounges, these massive call channels. They're, marketers that run their own show, as well as project owners that will also be contributing towards our success for the public pre-sale itself.
Awesome. So, is there something else we should know about the daylight token? So, can we kind of maybe do like a general summary of the function of the token? Are there other ways to get involved other than the token? I know that some people have mentioned NFTs. So, can we talk about just all the different types of investments you could have?
So NFTs are definitely a scope that we'll be looking forward to in the future. There are a lot of ways to integrate this, especially because our contracts are upgradable. So they're built on a proxy, and we can literally do it any way we like, to be quite honest. So Project Daylight's Daylight token is a deflationary token. It's deflationary from day one because there's no supply emitted after it launches, creating massive, massive scarcity. And as the market cap goes up, the supply just goes down, and it's just going to be a ridiculous amount of value when it gets to its maturity stage, I'd say. So Daylight token is supposed to be a token that you can stake, provide LP with, and you can still earn rewards over time. And on top of that, it's got a floor price. So the floor price is a fraction of the actual market price. And the way we've designed it is that the market price would trade about like 50 to 100x above the floor price, right? With the possibility, of course, of it falling down, but then also going up exponentially. Now, the floor price over time, even if you sell, even if there's dump, even if there's a lot of sell pressure, it just forces the floor price to meet the market price even faster, creating that collateralized value that's ever appreciating. And that's one of the most beautiful things about this protocol is the more you try to sell or the more you try to buy, any transaction finality contributes massively towards floor price. So I'll give you a very good example, and this is a mathematical example. Let's say there's $1,000 worth of daylight. Each token is worth $1, so there's 1,000 tokens, and I'm gonna sell 100 tokens, right? So when I sell, and let's consider the floor price at 0.1. So when I sell 100 tokens, 12% of that, sorry, not 12%, 8% of that is actually used to push the floor price up. So now there's another $8 added into the floor price, which brings it up to like 0.108, right? So every transaction finality permanently increases the floor price because these assets go back into the token contract as collateralized assets. So it's BUSD backed 100%. And there's no way that the floor price can ever be removed or non-existent from the token contract unless, of course, something happens like BUSD ceases to exist.
Yeah, that even nowadays you got to worry about that kind of thing, it seems. Um, okay, sounds pretty cool. Again, all this information will be available to you guys. So I know tokenomics can be a subject that can be hard to understand. I implore you to check out the white paper. There will probably be mathematical examples or some in-depth explanation of what that is. Thank you for going through that example for us. I'd like to move forward to some of the audience questions. So make sure you ask your question in the channel, guys. I know Data Philness, you posted a lot of them, so let's get started with you. Um, what real problem is being tackled by Daylight, and how do you plan, or do you plan to solve this problem, or I guess how do you plan to solve this?
Right. So the problem we're tackling is sustainability. As I've said before, there's a lack of residual value behind protocols and their token value, right? They're reliant on liquidity pools that can eventually be drained or run out. And this is what causes a bank run, which means there's no longer any money left in the protocol and investors are basically trapped. So that's something we've done to avoid um, any bank run possibilities and added sustainability measures, which is primarily the floor price, primarily utilities that contribute towards the floor price, as well as ever appreciating value. So it's a token that has a floor price that never goes down, but it only increases. And this can actually be manipulated from the back end. See, the floor price was like $1, backed by $100,000. If I were to feed the token contract with, let's say, $500,000, it just bump up the floor price permanently to $6.
Cool. Can you talk? He had another question actually that I wanted to mention earlier. Can you tell me a little bit about how Daylight is handling security in this space? That's always an important question because, people are worried about rugs or, something going wrong with the smart contract. Can you tell me a little bit about whether you've done any audits or just a little bit about the contracts themselves?
Yeah, of course. So the contracts are developed by DAPT, which is a contract development company, blockchain development company. They're the same guys that developed Kyoto, Grape Finance, MDB, Alto, and a lot of other big protocols or semi-big protocols in the space itself. So they're very credible when it comes to developing blockchain itself. And this company actually belongs to our tech advisor, Mark, who's the guy that wrote or helped with the token contract in particular. So in terms of security and audits, we'll be having an audit primarily with Truth Seekers. So Truth Seekers is a KYC and audit firm that also just did their seed round recently. It was a public seed round, not whitelisted like ours, but they have some nice proprietary tech that's been really, really hyped up. However, we're also going to get a second set of eyes, preferably by Solid Proof or Prisma Shield. So we're still deciding between the two, but contracts are basically ready. We'll just pull things up on the front end and then we'll submit for audits.
Awesome, cool. So yeah, that answers your last question, Data. Uh, looks like you have that security in the bag. Um, oh, actually, we have here. So we talked about tokenomics and sustainability. Talked about partnering. Sounds pretty good. Okay, so Rumwald here asks, what will be the revenue streams except the token taxes? I know you kind of went into that, but let's kind of go over that again, just to summarize everything.
Of course, of course. Um, And I recognize Rumwald from Betswirl. So this is also probably something, we've got utilities that are quite similar to what Betswirl is doing, but what we're not doing is we're not providing a white label um, for projects to basically uh, get into Betswell's ecosystem, but we're providing an all immersive on chain experience. So we have play to earn ecosystems that enable people to buy in with other currencies. So let's say we do a partnership with XXX token, you'd be able to use XXX token to come in and play with, uh, other players that are also in our space. So it's a multiplayer, it's immersive. It's something that we really want to push for in terms of utility, but this will be at a later stage when we have explosive growth that's enough to actually sustain that ecosystem. So to be quite frank with you, and I mentioned this before, the token taxes don't actually go towards revenue, right? Token taxes don't actually contribute to the project's profitability, but it contributes towards rewards, it contributes towards buyback and burns, and it also contributes towards raising the floor price permanently. And that's all the token taxes are useful. What contributes towards our revenue streams are DEX listings as well as Launchpad listings, where we'd be able to receive substantial amount of fees upfront or even after, and incubation services for such projects, which include marketing, which include development, KYCs, and audits.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds like you guys have a lot of plans, which actually kind of leads up to the next question. So in DeFi, I think that everything moves just fairly quickly, right? Like you see projects start and then kind of crash and burn like in 3 months or sometimes, the same week. So regarding the roadmap, and Data asked this question as well. Where do you see like, or I know there is a roadmap. So how do you see Daylight in 6 and 12 months? Like what is the long term and the medium term goals at the moment?
So when it comes to project survivability in particular, Daylight will actually be in a very good position because, as I said before, we have a floor price that is completely collateralized. It's 100% backed by BUSD and possibly other assets that are also backed by BUSD. So I'm talking about stable or appreciating stable coins. Um, so definitely the protocol will be intact. It's something that's designed to last forever and create scarcity in the very, very long term. In terms of product roadmap, however, we'll have the launchpad definitely out within the next 6 to 12 months, and also the play to earn ecosystem. So we'll be having our full-fledged roster of products out in order to actually support revenue streams as well as increasing the residual value of the floor price.
Okay, yeah. So it seems like everything is for the most part in the next 6 to 12 months, as far as like the big project uh, parts, right? Um,
Um,
okay.
well, we'll actually project to have our launchpad within the next 1 to 2 months. To be quite honest, it's massive. I think a lot of people are not able to really gauge or capitalize on this, but launchpads are a great revenue stream, and because we have the ecosystem to actually support a lot of these raises and incubate a lot of these projects, it's definitely going to contribute towards our ecosystem itself. Because, as I mentioned before, a portion of the revenue is 100% invested, sorry, a portion is completely invested into the floor price and the rest is kept for ongoing development.
Okay, and do you have any, for example, like metrics on that? I know that launch pads are really good revenue streams, but the thing that I always wonder is like, is there a team associated with bringing in new projects, right? Because the demand has to be there, especially in this market, with some sales not going as well. Do you have any like, I guess, numbers that we could work with, or like what kind of impact that would have to the whole protocol? Like if you had
I
to predict
can
usage, for example.
I can
Uh,
tell you right away that we've got 5 projects already lined up, waiting to get listed on our launchpad, to be quite honest. And I'm also in talks with layer ones, in order to be the first launchpad to ever facilitate launches on their networks as well. So newer layer ones that are coming out, and to be very honest with you guys, I just met, the founders of one of the layer one blockchains that we're currently in long-term partnership talks with, in real life. So I met them just about a few hours ago.
oh wow. That could be huge. If it's a very successful layer one, that by itself will be huge, right? Um, we have Trader over here that asked a question. He asked, "Will we be able to see how much money is in each LP?" I'm not sure about that one. And when you inject more into, okay, so I guess they're kind of asking about transparency, right? When you put money or the contract, if it's automated, injects money into the backing price of the daylight token, will this be all transparent in like the Discord, or how would that work exactly?
Yeah, so the backing price or the floor price itself can be seen on our DApp dashboard. So we'll have that displayed as well. In terms of how much money is in each LP, so each liquidity pool, we're going to be releasing the LP contracts basically for transparency, and everyone can just check whatever is in there. So we're not going to be doing lock liquidity. We're going to be opting for multi-sig liquidity.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean that for those who don't know what multi-sig is, you just leadership signs off on things like that. Um, Yeah, actually, someone asked this, and I think it might be later on. So, in this space, especially, over the past year, we had a lot of new investors or people who are just, finding out about DeFi. So for, I guess, kind of just addressing them for the newbies, like, how would you say is like the best way for them to kind of like, I guess, determine whether they want to invest with you or like how they would do that? um, starting from like very like let's say they just downloaded a MetaMask, like what would they do to
So
learn
the
about the
easiest
project?
way, yeah, the easiest way to learn about the project itself is probably to be within our socials. We have a bunch of FAQs. We have a bunch of directions that is very seamlessly and very simply explain to people, how to get onboarded onto the project itself, how to purchase, and we'll probably have more explanatory videos in the future as well. So it's something that we're definitely endorsing. We're advocating for DeFi and trying to evangelize it in such a way that we bring people, from outside that are constantly adopting the technology and constantly being adopted into our ecosystem as well. And on top of that, we do have a cross-chain BetFi protocol that's going to be coming out in Q1 2023. So what we're going to do very, very down the line is have some esports sponsorships, have some, Twitch streamer sponsorships like crypto.com is doing, bet.gg is doing sponsoring these big teams. We'll probably opt for like smaller sponsorships but strong audiences in the beginning. And this is how we'd be able to convert a lot of people who are into gaming itself to get into blockchain gaming instead.
Yeah, that can be like traditional finance is such an untapped market. I feel like in DeFi, right? It's just the people who happen to stumble on here, they get addicted, right? Because DeFi is very powerful. But Um, do, would you say that any part of your marketing is like directed towards TradFi, and how are you approaching that problem, if you are even approaching that problem to get the average consumer?
Um, Yeah, so not at the moment because those are not actually our marketing goals right now. We're not working on global adoption yet because we're not at that stage. We're still in a very immature stage. I'd say we're starting out as a project. We're a startup. Project's just been in inception for like 3 months. So all of that's definitely going to come at a later stage when we're more mature, um, and when we can tackle on such a challenge such as adopting investors into DeFi primarily, and then secondary into our ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay, so let's move on to another question. Uh, Trader also mentions, okay, so you mentioned a lot of partnerships, and you kind of briefly talked about, who you were involved with, and you specifically mentioned On-Chain Alliance. I have heard of this team before. I think you kind of elaborated on some of the benefits, but so could you specifically mention specifically what the benefit of partnership, I'm sorry, partnering with them is, like a more, I guess, like a basic example?
Yeah, so On-Chain Alliance is offering B2B services to different projects in the space and creating what seems to be a more sustainable circle. And it consists of certain projects such as Project Daylight. It consists of the Rebellion project. We've got Delta Finance, and a bunch of other exciting ones, right? So the names that I remember off the top of my head are like Neo Masterpiece, Rain Finance. So a lot of startups and recently started projects in the space, and some of them that haven't done any raises as well yet. But we're getting together to provide a roster of services to different um, DeFi projects in order to ensure sustainability, guarantee trust, and push bigger initiatives in DeFi. So what Project Daylight offers to this alliance is the ability for adopted projects to be able to get listed on our decks, to get incubation from us, to get launchpad services from us, because we're probably one of the biggest within the on-chain alliance itself, considering that 100 Days Ventures was just booted out of the alliance, and thankfully, that did happen, and for good reason. So for those who don't know about it, they were recently absorbed by MDB as well, which is a really good sign, right? So the on-chain alliance is staying true to sustainability as well as endorsing only powerful projects in DeFi that are actually contributing towards the betterment of the space.
Awesome. Yeah. That all sounds great, I think. Moving towards, I guess, the tokenomics and the coin a little bit, Sensei asked two questions. The first one of which is, how does the price guarantee a floor price of point 0.1, for example? Specifically, how do token holders liquidate their tokens if they want to when liquidity is limited? Is it like an over-the-counter service or something else?
Yeah, so basically, the price guarantee, well, the floor price is not going to start at zero point 0.1 or any fixed number in particular, right? It's really arbitrary to the amount we raise in the initial market cap. So we're probably going to put the floor price at about a tenth maximum of the actual market price, and even lower if we can do so in order to provide more liquidity. So we're going to split the liquidity pools and the backing assets in a proportional manner. So the floor price guarantees a certain price because the dollar value, so basically total supply divided by dollar value in token contract equals the floor price. Dollar value in token contract is the amount of BUSD that is actually fed within the contract itself. So the contract can be fed BUSD to manipulate the appreciation of the floor price, but we can never take it out of the contract. The only way to get it out of the contract is if you send tokens. So let's say there's no liquidity, you send tokens to the token contract and they're completely burnt from the supply once you do that. And what happens is you redeem the amount of tokens relative to the floor price.
Okay, and is this something that is just on the website? Like you'd be able to click on a button and would just ask you to
Uh,
transfer your tokens and that's it? Like go over
well,
counter.
you just transfer your tokens like you're doing it to a normal wallet, except you do it to the token contract instead.
Okay. All right, so it is kind of like, yeah. Okay. And I imagine all of that's kind of explained. I've never seen that before actually, but that makes sense.
Um, yeah, so it's very similar to how you would sell your MDB plus, for instance.
Okay. Yeah, and I know a lot of investors here are invested in that and are familiar. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that the answer to that question is kind of like an over the counter in some ways, except it's through a smart contract. And yeah.
Correct, correct.
All right. So his other question is, will there be future projects launched under the Daylight's wings, when where profits will be used to support the price and liquidity similar to MDB? So, we've kind of mentioned that a little bit. So are there some parallels to MDB? I know that I know where he's coming from, but can you elaborate on that?
No, we're not a project like MDB where their token is so their token MDB plus is an ever appreciating stablecoin, and that's not us. They don't utilize any liquidity at all, but they utilize mint on buy, because what is minted is based on the value that is fed directly to the token contract. That's how you buy MDB plus. So the projects that we take under our wing, incubate or launch on the launch pad, uh, so the revenue portion, proportion of the revenue goes towards price, flow price, liquidity, as well as other aspects of the protocol, and the rest is kept for development as profitability. So it's a revenue stream.
Awesome. Sounds good. Let's talk about the roulette bankroll a little bit. So I know you mentioned that early on. Which funds will be used to deposit on the roulette's bankroll?
So we're envisioning the roulette to, facilitate the buy-in either with daylight tokens or BNB actually. So it can be both ways. And you'd be paid out based on what you deposited.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's continue. Okay, so Data had asked that question that I mentioned. How would you onboard non-DeFi oriented people? Any plans to facilitate everyone's access and an entrance into daylight? I know you kind of answered that in the traditional finance sense, but I feel like yeah, you kind of mentioned something about that. Frank asked another question. He says, "Do you need a DJ to get music going prior to AMAs?" I don't know. I guess
Um,
I think he was just joking there.
it's an opportunity we can explore in the future, in the very far future.
Yeah. Sensei asked a question here too. Who won the first NFT giveaway? And it looks like he was laughing. So, um,
Yeah,
okay.
because he won it. So we gave away Baby Kong after the seed round. So as you can
Oh,
see, he's wearing it right now.
oh, that's awesome. Congrats, man. Loss asked a question. His only question is when Moon? Hopefully soon, right? Pre-sales coming up, and then I think launch is on November 8th, correct?
Correct, correct. So I cannot actually give any price action predictions, but what we can say definitely, and this is 100%, is that the floor price is ever appreciating in value. The price cannot drop below the floor price, and the actual market price, let's say that conditions are ideal, is expected to trade at least 50 to 100x above the floor price itself.
Wow. Yeah, so there's a possibility to Moon, let's say that. Okay, so I think this is the last question asked by again Data here. Disruptive innovation sometimes comes from an unexpected mix of value propositions that can be perceived or not perceived as logical. Is any outside the box, non obvious partnership being brainstormed in the Daylight project? All right, so is there kind of any alpha that you can provide us? I know you mentioned a layer one earlier, but is there any other alpha that you're willing to share with us today that maybe you haven't talked about before?
Absolutely. Um, so what we have at Daylight is definitely very very long term partnerships in talks, such as layer one partnerships, layer two partnerships, anything that's EVM compatible because we can build on it, right? So we can even facilitate. Because what we want to do is we want to facilitate sustainability and we want to actually create disruption and innovation in the space. So on top of that, we'll also be probably making our code very transparent in the very near future. So anyone can fork it. Whether or not they fork it to much success is not really um, something that we can control, but we're definitely going to be the pioneer for this kind of protocol. It's the first ever to ever happen in the space in DeFi. No one else has utilized collateralization and liquidity, and I must stress on this once more. So definitely an innovation that's in the works, and on top of that, we've also got an investment DAO that will be made up of some of our whales, some of our powerful buyers, who will essentially contribute to investments in sustainability, investments in incubated projects, and strive to make the space better for everyone else in general. So our primary goal is to protect our investors, our ecosystem to the maximum, but also provide them opportunities for growth and expansion outside of our ecosystem. So we're not keeping it enclosed, but at the same time, we're limiting things to a certain degree that helps us or enables us to keep certain operations intact so we can protect everyone.
Really quickly, you mentioned the launchpad and something that I wanted to ask. Are there plans currently for, if daylight holders want to participate in the launchpad, do they have any benefits other than the revenue sources, such as maybe specific types of allocations if you decide to stake them or have a certain amount?
So There are a lot of ways to structure this. We'll have like public raises, whitelisted raises, for example, on launch pads, and anyone who's holding daylight or holding at least a minimum amount of daylight will be eligible to receive um, whitelist benefits, for instance, or even pre-seed rounds or special opportunities that are presented by projects that we decide to incubate.
And part of the culture of the community here at Alpha Ventures, I'm always looking for opportunities to find those really good utility tokens. And I will say, based on the launch pad itself, owning some daylight might be worth it, just because if you can find a good project on the launch pad and you can get access to it specifically through a token. Obviously there are many other benefits to daylight themselves, but that could be something very big you might want to consider if you're interested at the moment. Okay, we have another question from Rommel. Thank you for answering that. How would you manage the house edge with your casino? Okay, so I'm under the impression that casino is a little. We have some time before we see that, but he's answering. How are you managing casino considering that daylight will have a sell tax? So how would you manage the house edge with your casino considering daylight will have a sell tax? Would players be double taxed? Do you have any information on that at the moment?
Yeah, so there are definitely ways to exempt taxation from interactions with certain contracts. So let's say that you use some daylight to buy into the casino. Instead of instead of being transfer tax, for instance, we could possibly exempt the tax because of that particular smart contract interaction. And the same thing goes for when rewards are emitted after the round is done or when you decide to cash out. So we'll definitely keep. We'll also have different tokens available for buy-in. So you can buy in with BUSD, you can buy in with BNB. Essentially, what's happening is that the investors aren't really losing their money unless it's to other players within the game itself. So you're playing Texas Hold'em, five of you are at a table. One person wins the pot. So that person would essentially cash out with a 5% deduction in what he wins that goes back to raising the floor price again. So to answer the question, players would actually not be double taxed. We have ways to overcome this for sure. We possibly might launch a secondary token, with certain capabilities like Xsushi, for instance, in order to earn swap fees, trading fees, but at the same time have a play to earn utility tied into it. No, there'll not be any house edge because the house won't participate in the casino itself. So it's going to be immersive. It's going to be players playing against each other.
Awesome. Yeah. It sounds like they definitely have some sort of plan regarding the casino. That's awesome. I just as a summary for everyone in the AMA details, I did provide just a small list of benefits. Obviously, this isn't everything, but as to why you might want to consider buying into the presale. And with that being said, I do kind of want to move forward towards, maybe finishing this off strongly. So could you kind of just last thing, kind of let us know how we could participate with this upcoming presale, what it's going to look like, what do we pay for, what chain, just pretty much everything involving that. And any final thoughts on the project or people who might be on the fence at the moment, how you might convince them to buy in as well.
Absolutely. So the way we're convincing people, and it's not to endorse our project or to advocate for people to buy our token because that's based on the principle of bias, correct? What we're doing is we're educating as much as possible through AMAs, through YouTube videos. So we've actually got about 20 AMAs lined up. We've got 20 YouTube videos lined up for the next 14 days to be released. So we're doing some really, really massive marketing pushes. In addition to that, and on top of that, we have like a few private DAOs that are also supporting us greatly. So a lot of people from the Drip ecosystem, for example, some of my bigger players that will be really, really supporting us to push the raise, etc., as well as some very, very prominent YouTubers. And that's enough to instill confidence, I would say, in a very unbiased manner, but at the same time to keep things neutral while also educating people as much as possible about the protocol itself. So the way to participate in the public presale is we're going to have a link to our DApp where you can purchase tokens. So the minimum buy-in is 300 BUSD, the maximum is 30,000 BUSD, and the penultimate hard cap is 1.8 million. So it's 10 times the size of the pre-sale pool, which was a slightly more lucrative offering. For the pre-sale, so from pre-sale to launch, you're getting after taxes a 2% increase in value, so a 2% return on investment that people might sell or not sell. However, every transaction finality, as I said before, and this is very important to note, contributes towards raising the floor price permanently. And we'll also have a liquidity reserve on launch in case we see any sell pressure. We can immediately offset that. So that's also some of the more innovative things that we're doing in the back end. And there's also a possibility that in case we have any excess tokens, so we've projected certain excess tokens that will not go to the reserve order boards at all. We're going to burn them all completely on launch and then exponentially raise the floor price as well as market price.
Awesome. Definitely a great explanation. I think if you have any other further questions for Ted or even through me, just be aware we do have a daylight channel, and I just posted that in the AMA details. You will get all the news forwarded in that as well if you're in the server, but I definitely recommend you check out the Discord, which is also posted in that channel. Feel free to get involved with the community, ask the questions, see how everyone feels about it, why are they bullish. Do your own research, obviously, with these kinds of projects. Although they came here for an AMA, it is up to you to make the decision. We're just here talking about all the opportunities, and it seems like Ted definitely has provided us an amazing opportunity. I've talked to him for quite a while. He has been involved in a few amazing projects that have done extremely well. I've been hearing about him and his projects a lot in other spaces. So definitely check this one out. And then let us know what you think. I want to just say thank you for stopping by, Ted. I'm really happy you came and did this AMA, and I hope we hear more from you. If you ever have anything else you want to share with us, we're always welcoming towards you. Thank you for everyone for answering a question. And yeah, just thank you, everyone. And then we'll call that ending as well. Thank you for stopping by, Ted. Everything was recorded and will be shared shortly with you all.
Of course. Thank you very much, Zach. Thank you for having me. And once again, big thank you to the Alpha Ventures community, as well as some of my community for being here as well. Really appreciate it and look forward to, everyone joining us on this beautiful journey. Daylight is going to position itself to basically bring back DeFi from the ashes and be a powerhouse to actually drive sustainability and longevity in the space. So we're going to change things. We're going to disrupt things. And I look forward to everyone here and their, past, present, future being with us on this journey. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ted. I hope you have a wonderful day. And to the rest of you all, thank you all for stopping by. Have a great time.
You too. Thank you.
Goodbye.